Hello to everybody who's joining us. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hi. So we're
Hi.
here today with Dr. Rose Schlaff. She's the creator of Be Well with Rose. We're going to be talking a little bit about sex sexuality, hoping to talk a little bit about sexual aftercare. All right. So welcome, Dr. Rose. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I just realized I didn't put on my AirPods. Can you hear me okay?
I think I can hear you okay. Folks who are hearing us right now can confirm if I can hear you okay.
Okay, let me know if you want me to put them in. I think there's probably a better microphone, but we can go with this for now. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's so nice to have you here. I've seen around. I've seen, well, for everybody who's listening, Dr. Rose is a certified women's health coach, women's sexual health fellow, and she's doctor in physical therapy. And she's been specializing in her career with working with pelvic floor muscles, right?
Mhm.
Well, I wanted to actually start the conversation today talking about precisely that, which is a topic that you're passionate about, which is um, helping women overcome this discomfort and pain that sometimes can show up with sex. Um, you have many years of experience, so I'd like to ask you, what are the most common like questions that you get when people go and look for you? What are the main things that they're struggling with, or the questions that they want answered?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the stuff that I end up talking about people is, you know, women think that so many of these things are normal, or they've talked to their doctor about having pain or discomfort during sex, or even like large amounts of pain or of discomfort with periods, and they've seen like their doctors or their friends or everybody else is saying like, oh, that's just what it is to be a woman, right? And although these things are common, I just want to say they're not normal, and they don't have to be this way. You don't have to have pain or discomfort during sexual activity. And actually, they've seen that 75% of women will at some point have pain or discomfort during sex in their lives, which is a crazy high number, right?
It's a lot.
And a third of them continue to have pain. But there's many different reasons for pain, and we can talk about, different strategies to alleviate this. But if you're out there and you're watching this and you're saying, am I crazy? Do I just need to like drink some wine and throw some lube on this because that's what my doctor told me? And I just want you to let
No.
know that you're not crazy. And there's so many other options other than wine and lube that can help alleviate pain and discomfort.
I like something that you said, which is like, you're not crazy, because like that seems to be part of, this whole structure that the world puts us in, which is, women are so sensitive, and then you're always making a huge mess about everything. And then, and in reality, well, it's not really about that. Sometimes we actually need to pay attention to it. I like that a lot.
Right? Right?
Um, yeah, and then, well, I just wanted to mention here at My Sex Bio this month, we are talking about sexual aftercare. And
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you have like any thoughts or any maybe advice on how you think maybe sexual aftercare can be a practice that you can incorporate that can help you if you're somebody who struggles with this type of things. Of course, you always need to go to the doctor and get checked, right? But how do you think that could impact um, this specific situation, sexual
Absolutely.
aftercare?
Yeah. So I think that anytime I think of aftercare, I think of it as this like beautiful time to come together after a sexual activity, right? Where you're checking in on each other, even if you're just taking that time to be together, or if you've done solo play to just be with yourself and kind of like sit in that sacred time and process what just happened, right? Because sometimes we can be in the swing of things and things may happen that we're not really like processing in that moment, and it's beautiful to have that space afterwards to discuss or even just to reflect with yourself. So I think that for especially if you're having pain or discomfort during this aftercare time, super important to talk about, what felt good, what felt safe. So I talk about safety a lot of the time when we're talking about pain, because certain activities, especially penetration, can oftentimes feel scary, and cause physical pain. And so many of my clients will end up doing anything but penetration. So it's like, okay, if we're working only with external parts of our body, or if we're working with other parts of our body, can we check in during that aftercare time and say, hey, did this work for you? Are there any other parts that needed attention? Are there any other parts that, wanted attention? Did you feel safe in the way that we did it? Did you need something else to feel safe? Are you comfortable with progressing that? So all of those questions, that's a beautiful time to talk about it.
I love that. And I think you mentioned earlier, and I think that that's the question I was also meaning to ask you, which is how have you noticed that um, experiencing this pain or discomfort when it comes to sex changes people's perceptions of what sex is or should be? And then in that same like line, how does that impact the way they experience, their own selves, because their sexual selves?
Right. Yeah, I think growing up, at least for me, growing up seeing TV and movies, I thought that sex was only when a penis enters a vagina, right? That's kind of my understanding of that's what sex is. And I think that it can change your perception, because this whole wide range array of different activities can become fair game for sex, right? It's not just about penetration. It's not just that kind of like heterosexual patriarchal media, what we see in the media
Mm,
of penis
totally.
and vagina, right? It's a
Yep.
whole wide range of things. And I always tell my clients, it's not just penetration. Sex is anything where you're feeling connected to yourself or your partner and you're feeling good in your body, like that can be sex, right? And you get to decide, each individual person gets to decide what sex looks like to them, right? Which array of activities is considered sexual to them.
Totally. I think that's so important. And especially, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm not sure if you work maybe with couples, but I see that people struggle a lot with that too, right? Because we all have this different definition of everything in reality, but we usually kind of just want to generalize everything and just go with what should be. Um,
Right.
I don't know if you have maybe any like thoughts or tips or just starting points for couples that feel like, they're in a different page when it comes to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about food a lot. I think food is something that's kind of like universal that we can understand, right? And
Okay.
so, like, think about when you're ordering like a pizza with your partner. Maybe one partner wants like mushrooms and anchovies and pineapple, and you're like, okay, well, I can get down with the mushrooms, but like that's a no on the pineapple and a maybe on the anchovies for me. So, getting clear on different people have different preferences coming into any type of dinner or relationship engagement, right? So, we're talking about two different people with two different interests. How do we find the overlap there? So that's a really fun way to start. It's kind of less charged talking about food than sex. So sometimes I'll have people even make like a red light, green light, yellow light list of,
Hmm.
okay, like green light is something that feels good all the time, that you feel connected, that you feel really great with. Yellow is something that you feel, mostly okay with or only sometimes okay with, but it needs to be a discussion first. And then red would be something that you're never okay with or never interested in. And so that can apply to the pizza example, right? Like if you hate anchovies and you're like, I would literally never eat anchovies with you ever, 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 don't even say the word because I'm going to be so upset, right? That's a red light item. If you're like, pineapple doesn't really do anything for me, but I could pick it off or like eat a little bit and it's fine. That's a yellow light item, right? Mushrooms would be like, I want it every time. It always sounds great to me. So I think talking about sex in these different ways, that kind of takes you out of this like pressure. I think sex can be really fun and easy and less pressured if you just allow yourself to have fun with it. So those are two exercises that I'll use with couples to just start that conversation and find that overlap of, hey, what does sex mean to us? Because we get to decide in our relationship.
I love that. I totally love that because sometimes I was reading on Reddit the other day, found the story, and then, well, basically a couple that have been married for a lot of time, and then things that were showing up. And it's always about that, you know, how we sometimes take it personal or how we just expect that things would be how they got us to be because it's not even sometimes most of the times it's not because we have that those ideas there. Somebody put them there and we just go on with them and we use them in our lives, but they don't even serve us anymore sometimes.
Right?
So I like that. And the food example is great.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right. And I
I
think
think
it
it's very
also like
realistic.
allows us to realize how kind of like silly it is to expect that everyone should like one certain thing exactly the same way. It's like if we were to have grown up watching every couple eat mushroom pizza, and then by the time we get into a relationship, we're like, what do you mean you're lactose intolerant? You don't want to eat mushroom pizza with me? Like your mind would be so blown, right? Like every
Yeah, you're
couple
gonna
on
be like,
TV watched it. And
yep.
and I think that people understand that better. Like, oh, you're lactose intolerant. Of course you don't want to eat pizza with me. That's fine. I'll grab sushi while you grab pizza, right?
Hmm. But it gets more complicated with sex. I like that. And you mentioned something about I've had the idea and it leaves again like twice. Um, oh yeah, like we like also part of that is how we think of sex as this scary thing and how there is so much pressure you were talking about. And then like I think part of that is just like normalizing it. Like there is so much taboo around it and then so much you know, like you shouldn't talk about that. Just let's just better talk about the weather. But it's like, okay, but then what are we ignoring in the meantime while we decide to talk about the weather when in reality we need to be talking about the things that really affect us?
Right.
So I think that's a really, really interesting thing. Um, I had a question though. I was reading through your website and you had some little thing here. I'm gonna read it. It says that during your coaching sessions, you use personalized and holistic approach that utilizes simple daily practices and rituals that unite your mind and body so you can reclaim intimacy, right? And then I was very curious about that. I would like to know, like, maybe if you can share one or two, because when you talk about daily routines and how can a daily routine intersect with your intimacy and help you change your sex life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the beautiful thing about the coaching I do, which by the way, I started in the world of pelvic floor physical therapy. So I was, treating people hands on in the clinic. I was addressing their pelvic floor muscles, just like if you sprained your ankle, you would go see a physical therapist to rehab your ankle. I was doing that for the muscles of the pelvic floor. And I found that when we're talking about pelvic floor muscles, and their impact on sexual health, it is really important to address that physical part. However, there's so much more outside the physical as well. So I was seeing women in my clinic and treating pelvic floor muscle tightness and then looking at them and saying like, okay, go have some sex, enjoy yourself. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, I haven't enjoyed sex and I don't even know how long. And like, I don't even know how to do that. I don't even know how to look at my partner without just seeing them as like a co-parent, right? And so there was this rebuilding process that needed to happen. And that's really why I dove deeper into my own professional training to say, okay, what comes next after we address the physical? How do we get you back to that place where you feel reunited with your body and able to engage with your partner? So that's how I got to the coaching that I do now. And when we're talking about the personalized kind of ritual based, simple bite sized approach, I feel like every human is very busy. We live in a busy world. And also, it's hard sometimes to prioritize sex, especially when there's been some resistance around it in the past. It can feel like oh, it's the last thing on the to-do list and I'm so tired every time I think about it. And so it's something that just comes to mind. I had a client who is a mom and she was feeling difficulty at switching over into the role of wife or partner, and even like getting into this kind of like sensual headspace, because it's like I've been taking care of kids all day. So for her, her little ritual was she would put on a song that reminded her of just that part of her, because we all are made up of parts, right? We're all made up of parts. We're all, daughters, mothers, partners, sisters, right? And that those facets of us are very different. However, we need to be able to integrate all those parts or switch between those parts as we want to. So for her, music helped her kind of get into her body. She would move to the music, and even in that like 2 minutes, she was able to be like, okay, this is who I am outside of being a mom, outside of being a partner. This is me. I'm back in my body. And it was much easier for her to kind of move forward with intimacy if that's what she chose for that evening. So that's an example of something that would work for that I've used with a client in the past. But really, it's pretty individual based on every person's life. And that's the beauty of the coaching process is what works for one person isn't going to work for another.
Totally. Yeah. Well, we go to that same point of we all like different pizza, right?
Yeah. We all like different
I
pizza,
think
exactly.
I love that idea of the music. Also because I think all of us like music is something, yep, it's something very personal, but also very like widespread. Like we all listen to music, even if not much, but we do. So I think
Right.
that's a very beautiful example.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's really no barrier to accessing it, right? It's like on your phone, takes 1 second to turn on a song, and it's so easy to go through our day just in our head, right? Like thinking, thinking, thinking. And I feel like when you're allowing yourself to move to music, it kind of forces you to get back into your body a little bit and just check in with that embodied part of you.
I think you're talking, yeah, you're going a little bit to probably like the mindfulness side of it, like how you should, like try to stay in your body, stay present. Um, that is one example, but like, I guess you've encountered that as well. There are many people who actually, or maybe most of us, like struggle to actually be able to be present and mindful, especially during sex. Like
Yeah.
it's normal for everyone to like I'm doing the shopping list while I'm here, and it's like I shouldn't be
Yep.
doing the shopping list. How do I not do a shopping list and focus? Um, so I don't know if you have like any like more general like type of advice for those who actually struggle a lot with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use like a all your senses. So I encourage you, if you are feeling like you're finding yourself kind of like swirling in your head or just kind of stuck in your head during sex, I just gently, kind of like with meditation, right? This all comes back to the mindful piece, but gently redirecting. So I'll have people start with like, tell yourself one thing that feels good or one thing that you can feel right now, right? Like, okay, the softness of the sheets on my back, or that feels so good. What's happening right now? One thing that you can smell, one thing that you can, like encounter in your body. And so you're bringing yourself back to your senses. If you are listening to music, listening to how the music feels in your body, just encouraging you to come back to the present moment instead of being in the future of making that list. But I will have people literally like sometimes even narrate their sexual experiences of saying like that feels so good, okay, that feels great, like, oh, that, really like telling yourself when something feels good to you, it keeps you grounded in that experience.
Yeah, that's like the first step. Again, something so it sounds so like small and not important, but it actually can be a game changer. I love that advice.
Yeah, it like
And
your
also
logical brain into it.
yeah, exactly, because that's what gets on the way. You start having thoughts, but then if you just focus on yeah, your body, that's I've done it a couple times, like in terms of like in life. I just recently started to try to like breathe and all those things, and it's definitely beautiful. It's
Mhm.
also funny because when this is another thing that society tells us, right? Like anything that is alternative and different, it's just not like that's woo woo, that's not something you should look at into, that is not right. But it's amazing how that can really actually help people in a lot of realms, including sexuality.
Right.
Um,
I mean, in every area of your life too. Like I love dancing. I take a dance class every week that I adore. And also, I find my mind wandering sometimes during it. And I will consciously, the dance class is outside, and I'll consciously be like, the sun feels so good on my face. The breeze feels so good in my hair. The leaves look so beautiful right now. The grass feels so good under my feet. And tell myself what my body is experiencing and bring me back to the present moment. Because our mind is so powerful. It's like, let me just take you out of this, you know?
yeah. It's like, okay, you're dancing, but I'm also gonna solve all the world's
Right.
issues for you in the meantime, and also I'm gonna cook your dinner, and I'm gonna do all this while you dance. So bear with me. Yep. Um, that's how it works. What you were mentioning also made me think of going back a little bit to Aftercare, because you were mentioning like, okay, telling yourself the smells you have around and how does it feel, the sheets near your back and all that. And like one of the, aftercare rituals also can look in many different ways. Some people like to light candles and do different things. But I'm thinking as you work with people who specifically experience this negative, not only emotions but also sensations in their bodies regarding sex. How do you think that, like, what are specific maybe aftercare um, rituals or routines that they could incorporate to just start going out of that headspace of sex is bad and it's gonna hurt me? Of course, that would be with a lot of other work that they probably would be doing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So, again, if you've made that kind of like red light, green light, yellow light, and red items are taken off the list so that you can rebuild that sense of safety with sexual activity so that you're not worried, like, is this activity going to cause me pain? Is this going to turn into an activity that I don't want? There's an understanding of what's on the table and what's off the table, right? And then regrounding in pleasure, right? So, meaning, does it look really beautiful if you have fairy lights up on your ceiling? Is there a particular candle that smells good? Is there a particular lotion that you really like that your partner could, rub your legs with? Is there music that makes you feel safe, makes you feel comfortable? Anything that brings you back to pleasure, even if it's not sexual pleasure, right? Just feeling good.
definitely.
And then also safety, right? Like what makes you feel the safest and coziest? Are you, cozy in bed? Are you, do you make some tea and you have like a warm
Yeah,
beverage? Are you cuddling? Are you being held by your partner, feeling safe in that aspect? So really just encouraging yourself to explore what does pleasure look like in and out of the bedroom using my five senses. How do I bring as much of that as possible? And then what makes me feel the most safe and comfortable? And how do we lean into that?
I love that. That's great. All right. Well, I think that's all for today. Hoping we can chat a little bit again someday.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody who is around and listening. Thank you, Dr. Rose, for all your advice. I love the music thing. I'm definitely gonna think of what could do that for me. Love the routines approach to it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And I just wanted to let you guys know if anyone's watching this and is having pain and is kind of unsure of where to turn, like maybe you've gone to the gynecologist and been told to have wine and lube, right? I do work with a lot of different practitioners all over. So you're welcome to email me, bewellwithrose@gmail.com, if you have any questions or if you want to find a way to a practitioner near you. I also have a free resource on my website, bewellwithrose.com. So either one of those would be a great place to start. And thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy to talk about this today.
Thank you. You all have a
Bye.
wonderful day. Thank you. Bye bye.
Carnal Theory is produced by My Sex Bio, an educational platform empowering people like you to take command of your sexual biography. Our sound design is by David Usma, and theme music by Min the Universe. Video editing is by David Usma, and our assistant video editor and marketing coordinator is Maria Taruque. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify at My Sex Bio. Visit our website and join our e-letter at mysexbio.org, and support our work by joining our Patreon. Thank you.